Hello, Salim Omar here. Welcome to another episode of CPA Marketing Genius podcast. I've got a special guest with us today. His name is Robert Mendetti. Robert, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Salim. Love the podcast and really look forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Great. Robert's a CPA, just much like you and me, the listener. But he's also a CFO. Works in he's a CFO in an engineering firm. He's got 20 plus years of experience. He's the founder of the Global CFO Council, Chief Financial Officer of Life Cycle Engineering. But I think it's best, Robert, if you share with us your backstory. So let's start there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am a CPA. My journey is a little unorthodox. I was never in public practice. So I've always worked in corporate accounting, even sort of that first job as an auditor, it was an internal auditor. But I have an undergraduate degree in finance and an MBA with a concentration in small business and entrepreneurship. I went back and got a master's degree in accounting and financial management so I could sit for the CPA exam, sort of early career, and then sat for the CPA exam. And again, always been corporate accounting, been a manager, a VP, and now CFO for several companies, usually mid-market firms, private companies has been the last 20 years, but every industry you can think of, which I think is great about accounting, is if you're in practice, you can do taxes or audit or advisory for lots of industries. Well, it's true of CFOs. I can be the CFO of textile or logistics, food manufacturing. It doesn't really matter. So right now, I'm at an engineering firm, a different kind of professional service than a CPA practice, but professional service nonetheless. And so I love listening to your podcast. And I think everything that you say and we'll talk about apply to any professional service firm, whether that's CPA or an engineering firm.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. What is it like working in an engineering firm surrounded by engineers? I think engineers are are quite similar to CPA, very technical people.
They are. And I imagine it's exactly the same. If you make a spelling error, or if God forbid you were to make a mathematical error, they will absolutely point it out. And details are very important. Timeliness is very important. They sweat the small things. So I have, a lot of internal customers that are very detail oriented, but they're also that makes them interested in what I'm doing. And so I think that's good. It could be worse. I really like working at this engineering firm in particular. So I have no complaints.
Good. What is it like communicating financial information to non-financial people? In engineering, engineers may be a step ahead, but if you're working in the advertising industry or manufacturing industry or construction industry, you've got clients in that, or you're the CFO in that industry, and these people are they're not detail oriented for one, but they're also very non-financial people, and you come from a place of financial. How does the CPA listening to this communicate and have an audience, have a client that's engaged?
I think it's important to do two things. One is to tell stories, and then also to explain things in a way that you're coming from their standpoint, the listener standpoint, what's in it for them. And so that may mean that you have to express it in a completely different way and focused from their perspective. So if my customers, a new employee or somebody in the marketing department or in an administrative department, or they're an engineering technical person that has no idea what I'm talking about when I'm discussing the details of the balance sheet, that I tell it in a story like a parable. And then I tell it from a perspective of, hey, this is why it's important. This is why it matters to you. I heard someone say that people are mostly interested, or they're always tuned into the radio station WIIFM, which stands for What's in It for Me. So I think you do those two things, you got a better chance of the information being absorbed.
Yeah. Now, in your bio, and I don't know if this is really how if this is really true. But it said something along the lines of Robert the funny guy, or something along those lines. Uh, is that something you do intentionally? I mean, do people in the company you're in, do they recognize you? They see you as a funny guy? Are you always joking with them?
Gosh, I mean, if you have, yeah, I think I'm humorous, but you really do have to ask the audience. But Salim, so yes, I think of it when I go around to all the offices and give my presentations, whether it's sometimes in the summer, I do a roadshow about financial literacy, or I do a roadshow around saving for retirement, or I do a roadshow about the year-end finance and review. It is both facts and figures, and I am also trying to sell a story, and I am also trying to show what's in it for them, but I'm trying to make it entertaining. And so I'll make a game, use a little bit of gamification. I'll have prizes. I'll have some jokes. And a little insider play is that it takes a little while to work up your material. And so I'll go to some of the offices that are really friendly and nice and laugh at anything. And then there's the harder offices, Philadelphia, that I go to last. Once I've worked out the material and I know what really is funny and what isn't, I go to Philadelphia once I have my act together, and then I present. But I try to bring a little bit of humor into it, because gosh, some of what we say is boring. And so if I can get somebody to absorb a little bit more, that can have a multiplier effect, especially if they're a manager, if they're a leader. If you can get them to pay attention a little bit longer, absorb just a little bit more, that can have a huge effect on staff level people, new people. So I try.
Yeah, that's great. Now, when we spoke earlier, you said you have a passion project, and it's sales is not a dirty, something along the lines of sales is not a dirty word. Sales is service. Tell us more about that.
Yes, I have found, just like I think many accountants and engineers are very similar in this, is that they hear people say, oh, we're all in sales, but a lot of engineers and maybe some CPAs in practice that are listeners, they think that sales is a dirty word, and it's not. I think that sales is service. There's no higher calling. There's no greater service to our internal and external customers than learning about your customers and your potential customers' problems and how you can help them solve them. Being a connector or a matchmaker to maybe outside resources, or you yourself solving those problems. Sales is service. And it's kind of my 2022 mantra that I'm practicing on you before I hit the road and try to sell that at Life Cycle Engineering.
Okay. All right. So sales is not a dirty word. Sales is service. What are some of the things that CPAs, CPA listening to this wants to notch up his or her game, wants to grow their practice top line? What are some of the things they can do when it comes to sales?
Well, I think there's maybe, and I'm going to be a little provocative here. In my experience, limited is just one CFO that does get a decent amount of phone calls and meeting requests from CPAs that I thought engineers were bad at sales and business development. Wow, CPAs are terrible. And so I got 9 ideas for you. I'm going to hit you rapid fire, Salim. You tell me agree or disagree quickly. First one is, I think you've called it building authority. I call it being a visible expert. One way of being to grow business development is be visible in your marketplace as an expert. As an example, a virtual meeting where people have to sign up to participate, where you're sharing a new tax update, new legislative update, SALT update. And then that creates a funnel of qualified leads for someone to follow up on. Idea number 1.
Agreed.
Number 2 is that you may be like, okay, I don't want to speak in public, Robert. Give me something else. Online resources where you have a checklist, a worksheet, a very short summary of a very new and critical issue that would be great for SEO and Google Analytics. That is, it has to be downloaded to receive. That again creates a funnel of opportunities for someone to follow up with. Idea number 2.
Agreed. I like that.
Number 3, referral networks. You do not have to do this all by yourself. You should be, I said, you need to be a matchmaker. You need to be a connector. You're listening to your customers and future customers. They're going to bring up problems and pain points that you can't solve. But if you can be their connector and referral to the problem, now they're going to come at you for everything. And that can be a good, now you're sticky. Now you're a trusted advisor. And you know what trusted advisors get? They get paid more. And you know what they don't get? They don't get fired. So you need to have some referrals. You need to know the absolute best financial advisor, absolute best banker, insurance broker. You need to know the number one staffing firm in your area. You know them and refer them. They can't help but refer to you potential clients. Nobody's going to know. They're going to know CPAs that are terrible, that are their customers are mad, and your staffing firm that you has as a referral network, they're going to go, oh, you know what? Salim is I'm helping you with your staffing. I know you're complaining your CPA is terrible. I'll tell you, Salim is the absolute best. That guy's amazing. Let me refer you. It will become reciprocal. Again, create a funnel.
Yeah. I tell you, it's a no-brainer. Number 3 is a no-brainer. Because it's, coming in as a trusted advisor, you get paid more, you're more valuable, you've got a better relationship with the client, you're making a difference for them. It's like, it's serving so many different people in so many different ways. It's a no-brainer. And it's serving the CPA because you get paid $20,000 a year instead of $4,000 a year to do a tax return. You become a trusted advisor and charge $20,000 a year. Agreed.
And sometimes one that may be a little on the fence, but I think it's a good idea, so I'm going to say it, is that it's also a good idea to have some CPA firms upstream and downstream, or left and right, of what you like to do. You need to define what your perfect customer is so that you can define what's outside of that. Maybe you have a current customer that moves outside and you need to push them somewhere, or you have somebody who reaches out to you and they're not the right client for you. You need to push them somewhere. There's other CPA firms, maybe they're way too big for a client that would be perfect for you, or they only do government contracting and you never do government contracting. Also consider having other CPA firms in your referral network, again, for matchmaking in two-way.
Good. Agreed.
And we do the same with engineering. Yeah, we do the same with engineering. Exactly. So,
yeah. And definitely in the law side, with lawyers, attorneys, right? They have their level of, their expertise, and then anything else is a cross referral.
Idea number 5 is you're not going to do it if it's not on your calendar. I live by my calendar. It's not enough to have it on a to-do list or think about it as a strategic goal. No. It needs to be tactical. It needs to be on your calendar Monday through Thursday, because if you put it to Friday, you'll never do it. Monday through Thursday, you need to have some time on your calendar to do business development. Put a recurring 30 minutes or 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Put it on your calendar so you have the reminder, and it will force yourself to do it. I know a lot of CPAs, if you're like me, man, it just frustrates the heck out of you if you don't do something that's on the calendar. So put it on your calendar.
Love that. Absolutely.
We have found that number 6, advocate clients, current customers that are advocate customers, are fantastic for virtual introductions. And so when you're meeting with your current customers and they're advocates and they're telling you, gosh, you did such a great job with this tax or audit or advisory situation, thank God. You go, Julie, hey, would you mind? I noticed that you are connected, or are you connected with X, Y, and Z? Would you mind giving me a little virtual introduction? Just an email that says, Robert meet Latasha meet Robert. I'll take it from there. No pressure. I'll be totally cool. I'm not going to hound anybody or disrespect your network. Ask advocate clients for virtual introductions.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think also, let's not forget growing your current customers. If you're doing tax, see if you can do audit. If you're doing audit, do tax. If you're doing tax and audit, do advisory. How can you show added value? What can you bring to your customer without them even asking? Or if you asked before and they said no, ask again. Think about how you can show added value to current customers as a way to grow your business. It's the easiest way to grow your business.
Yeah. Cross referral of services, right? Selling more. And yeah, totally. 100% agreed.
Couple more ideas is, we're getting elementary. Maybe these are middle school ideas now. I'm not getting to like college level ideas. I want to overstate it, but a little higher level is I've noticed some CPAs are a little adverse to remote, a little adverse. There's somehow they think there's a moat around the zip code that they have an office in. And folks, it's not true. And it's never been less true than now with virtual work. Virtual means lower barrier to geographic expansion. So maybe you're like, hey, I'm only licensed in the state of XYZ. All right, cool. Well, the whole state is open to you. It's also not that terribly expensive to be licensed in another state. You do not need to have an office. I could care less if my CPA has an office in anywhere. Why do I care? I don't care. You just charge it. If you said I don't have an office because I'm trying to charge you less to bring more value. Oh, okay, that sounds cool somehow. That's a fancy way to say it. I think virtual means lower barrier to entry. If you're listening, man, there's not a moat around your zip code. Get out and about. Think about the available market as much larger than whatever you think it is now.
Yeah, totally. I was just talking to someone, a podcast episode, and he's from Oregon. He's like, can you guys handle my taxes in Oregon? Yes, we can. It's we don't have to be licensed in that state.
And last idea I'm going to pitch you here, as maybe I've gone long, is that I have found, I think, a truism, Salim, of everywhere I've ever worked. It seems like that Pareto analysis, that 80-20 rule, just seems to stick. That 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your revenue. 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your margin. Very often, those are different customers. So you need to figure out both. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't have time. I'm a sole practitioner, or I only have 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. And it'd be too expensive to add another resource. Robert, I can't find another resource. It's so hard. It's not even worth it. Why? I don't have time. Well, here's how you make time. Is if that's true, and it is, I promise you, that 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your margin. Well, that means 80% of your customers are driving 20% of your margin. That's also true. I promise you. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
And that within that 80%, like a fourth, a third. So like, let's say a quarter or 33.4 of your customers are driving no margin. Maybe they've been around forever, or they're really high touch. The pricing just no longer correlates to the work. There is just a mismatch, and they're probably very long-term customers, or they're very big customers, and you might have to fire them. If your constraint is resources, you can't find another junior or mid-level accountant. Okay, as an example, fire the 25% of your customers that are bringing you no margin and a lot of headache. Then now you have available resources to fill in the funnel with new high margin work. And you don't have to fire them this tax season. You can tell them, hey, next tax season, I'm no longer able to service your account like I would like to. And you're too important to me. You're too high valued. And I've identified 2 CPAs in my referral network that I want to give you a virtual introduction to. But I'm just letting you know now that next year I can no longer service your account. Boom. And you gave them some notice, but that is a little extra credit thought and can be really hard to do. What do you think, Salim?
The times when we have done that, Robert, we've seen the client say, whatever is the right fee, I want to pay the right fee so that I stay here. And that's a win-win, I think. The client really sees the sincerity that we are coming to them with that, with that kind of scripting that you shared, something along those lines. They see the sincerity. They see that we're in business to make profit, and they'll agree to it. Some won't, and that's fine. You say goodbye to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the ones, there'll be some that will, and that's a happy client that sticks.
Yeah, and again, all under this framework of service. I think if you're an engineering firm providing engineering services, that's a good, valuable service that the world needs, or it's accounting. That's a good, valuable service that the world needs. And so sales is service. You're offering and being available to solve problems that people have. And let me tell you, the average person hates engineering and hates accounting. They failed those classes and they went and gotten a degree in marketing or something else. And so they are really glad you're there. So don't think that sales is a dirty word. Marketing is not a dirty word. Sales is service.
Yeah, and when you have that mindset, then you want to have as many clients as you can have, right? As long as you can service them, because you're making a difference for as many people. So you're not working with a small group of people. And a lot of CPA firms they can be 10 times, can be making a difference for 10 times the number of clients that they're working with. And so I love that. I think that's really, really very credible, very, very, very interesting, a very good way to see it. I also like the 20/80 rule a lot. 20%, I read the book, Richard Koch, the 20/80 principle. And then he's got a couple other books, the STAR principle and so forth, but really very, very, very smart guy. And the 80/20 principle really applies to so many things in our lives, including our accounting business. And if we can start
It's so
looking at
wild.
it from that standpoint, we become more focused on working on what matters.
Yeah, I almost get weirded out by how frequently the 80/20 rule applies. When I worked at a food manufacturing company, a packaging company, 20% of our SKUs made 80% of our margin. And when I worked in the hospitality industry, 20% of the days drove 80% of the market. It's just really, really weird. And then sometimes there's higher concentration. I currently work at a firm where there's even higher concentration, but there's always concentration, and you will know it. It's really interesting to look into, but it is true at whoever's listening. I promise you, where you work, there is really significant customer concentration in margin and revenue. Those customers that's a different list. Very often that can be quite interesting to find out that the list of who's on the 80% of revenue and who's on the 80% of margin is different. And, but it's a really fascinating, worthy exercise to look through.
Yeah. This is so good, man. Thank you for sharing all that, Robert. I'm looking at the clock and we are coming towards the end. Time goes by fast when you're having fun. What's the one question that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Under that umbrella of service, the thing that comes to my head is that, the skills that we have are needed out there in the world. And that if you already aren't, and many of us are, but if you already aren't serving in your religious organization, your civic or community or industry association, you should. And that it could be something obvious as the treasurer of the industry or the civic or the charity or the religious organization, or it could be something exciting. Maybe stretch out. You've been listening to Salim and you want to serve on the marketing committee of your trade association or civic association. Maybe stretch out, but serve, volunteer. That's the call to action, and is what I think we all need to be doing now more than ever.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. If listeners want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I am on LinkedIn. That's about it. And I think I'm the only Robert Bendetti that's a CPA, that's a CFO. I think I'm easy to find. I'm the bald guy with the nice shiny head, and I'd love to connect.
Awesome. Great. Now, you recently started, and I don't know if it's recent, the CFO Global Council. You want to take a moment to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I was in Savannah, there was a CFO Council in Savannah. I thought it was cool. I moved to Charleston and I wanted to join the chapter there. And there wasn't. It was just a Savannah thing. So I started something in Charleston, South Carolina, and then had reason to go to Greenville a lot. So I started one in Greenville. And then when COVID happened, I had to move all the meetings to virtual. And I realized when I was doing that, well, gosh, I no longer have a barrier to geographic expansion, just like I was saying about CPS. I was like, I can let people join from anywhere. And previously I'd said, no, it's just a local thing. I'll help you start. something and I'd never hear back from people. So I just let people join from wherever. So now there's the Global CFO Council. People can join if they want to. We have 1,500 members in 32 countries over the past, I think I've been doing this for like 9 months, 12 months. And now
Wow.
wherever 100 or more are gathered, as we kind of lift from this pandemic situation, I'll kick off chapters all over the world.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Is it for CFOs that are in organizations? Who is it for? Who is it targeted to?
It is the CFO, it's a global CFO council. So it's people who are senior financial executives. If you're the CFO, or some companies call it VP of finance, even corporate controller, you're a senior financial executive, treasurer, senior financial executive. Our content is for you. Education, networking, fellowship is for you. And then where we have chapters, where we have physical locations, I also allow 10% resource companies to join, CPAs, lawyers, insurance companies, the people who we partner with to do our job, 10% resource companies, 90% CFOs, because we all are in this together. We all need each other.
Awesome. Great. Good stuff. And if people want to check it out, what's the URL for that?
I am such an accountant. It's globalcfocouncil.com.
Awesome. Great. Good stuff, Robert. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.